What is a typical service like at Ocean Lakes Family Campground here? The 9 a.m. service, if folks came in at 8:45 to hear your tremendous vocalist there and leading into the service.
Greg, our service is more traditional than it is contemporary. I know that we have a lot of churches in the area that have two services. They'll have an earlier contemporary.
Right.
Basically, the music is more contemporary music, and then the traditional will be later.
Correct.
Our service here primarily caters to older people.
Okay.
And so we sing the old gospel songs, we sing the familiar hymns, rather than the praise choruses. We'll sing some of those occasionally, you know, but it's more traditional type music. We have a sermon. Mr. Jackson, sometimes we have preacher friends of mine say, well, let me come, or entertainers will come, so let us take the whole service. And Mr. Jackson sort of frowned on that. He wants to have the regularity of of singing, congregational singing. We have scripture reading, a sermon, but all within the hour period. And it's a moving experience. Every sermon is not the best sermon, I will confess. I always think about old Dr. Vance Havner used to say, he said, I've never heard a sermon I didn't get something out of. He said, but I've had some pretty close calls. And that's true, I'm sure, for Ocean Lakes folks too. But it's a real rewarding experience to be here.
That's exciting.
And the title of the campground, you know, it's not just Ocean Lakes Campground, it's
Right.
Ocean Lakes
Family Campground, yes.
And that family concept carries over not only to the guests who come here, but there's a family spirit, I believe, within the staff. We call them teammates.
Yes.
And that's good. People who work at Ocean Lakes, by and large, are happy to be working here.
Yes.
That's wholesome.
And Lance shared that with us on Monday, and Nelson shared that with me in an interview 4 or 5 years ago at the Fox 43 studios about teammates, and truly that is a part of the family culture here.
That's right.
Definitely is. And much like the Christian family, which is surely a team building approach, and that aspect, just that aspect, if someone doesn't know that you're a minister, a chaplain, Kirk, how do you open up a discussion about Christ? How do you bring the Lord into conversations, even deep into a conversation?
Yeah. I'm always happy when I have the privilege of doing that. I am not like some of my preacher friends. I call them lapel grabbers. They'll grab you and say, are you saved, buddy? That's a real turnoff to me. I don't want anybody to do me that way, and I don't want to do anybody else that way. But when the Lord opens the door for the conversation, then it happens in multiple kinds of ways, I think. But when God opens the door, then I would always want to be ready to walk into that. The problem is, I think, with many Christians, well-intentioned, they try to open the door when God hasn't opened it. And that sort of is offensive to a lot of people when they feel like you're cramming your religious faith down their throat. Nobody responds positively to that, I think.
No, that's right.
But, for example, my wife and I, a few years ago, were on a tour to Italy. We were on the tour bus, and a couple of girls from Australia were sitting beside us, and they got to talking. Obviously, they were not Christian according to their lifestyle and their expressions and every indication.
Right.
But the subject came up about Catholic and Protestant. They said, what's the difference between what Catholics believe and what Protestants believe? So that was sort of an open door for me. And I just sort of explained to them what we as Protestants believe, and I explained that we and Protestants and Catholics have much in common. We're both Christian faith.
Right.
And so it was an opportunity for me to share the gospel, really, with those girls in response to their question.
Yes.
And sometimes people might come to you if they have a burden, particularly at the hospital, you know.
Oh yeah, I was about to ask about the hospital. Surely in those real crisis scenarios where so oftentimes if a plane's about to crash, you know, that's when folks you hear, that's when the time they're going to find the Lord, if there was ever one. But and that's a broad generalization, but the idea of being in a hospital where loss is occurring, and
and even in the hospital setting, it's important for the chaplain not to be aggressive and violate the sanctity of the patient's feelings too. But there are many opportunities when the patient would invite some words of encouragement from a person who is supposedly close to the Lord. Do you have a word of cheer? Do you have a word of comfort? And that's an opportunity to let people know about our Christian faith, I think, man.
As being in a chaplaincy role, which you've served for right at 20 years now, almost 20 years, prior to that, serving as an active minister in different churches, whether it's the church, Dan Gray, one of our guests yesterday, had known you at Ocean View Baptist Church for your 15 plus 16 year ministry there, and he said, you got to get that Kirk Lawton in if you can, and I know he mentioned that another time.
Bless Dan's heart.
Bless Dan's heart there. But that service in a ministerial role with an active congregation where you're intimately involved in their lives, that must be, I mean, what are some of the big distinctions or differences between the service or are there any differences there between a service at Conway Hospital or Ocean Lakes versus Ocean View Baptist Church?
I think one of the problems that every pastor of a church faces nowadays, and I had it to some degree when I was a pastor of a church, but one of the difficulties that every pastor faces is running the ship. The administrative job of keeping the church going. There's so many other things that grab a pastor's time, and it would be ideal if pastors didn't have to do all that, if they had somebody to be the administrator and take charge of all these things. But generally speaking, unless it's a big mega church, that falls on the shoulders of the pastor. Now here at Ocean Lakes, for example, we have no, as I mentioned, we have no membership roll, we have no budget, we have no committee meetings, we have no deacons, elders, stewards, any of that. And so I have preacher friends of mine who say, hey Kirk, when you retire, put my name in there.
Get me in, top of the list. Oh, I bet.
Waiting to get it. But as Jane says, when I get so feeble that I'm having trouble to stand up to preach, she's going to stand beside me and hold me up. So
that's going. Right. Absolutely. Yes.
There's so many demands on a pastor's time. And the local pastor, and I faced it from that standpoint. And it's a constant problem to know how to judge your time, what you allocate time for this, or study, preparation. When you get in the pulpit, the people want to have a word from the Lord. And they deserve to have that. And when the pastor's been spending all week doing all these other kinds of things, it's a difficult situation.
That would be. What do you share with them, your friends? I mean, how do they do it all? How do they? Do they?
I'm not the example to set before my preacher friends. We have, of course, there are courses they can go to seminars and get some guidance, and how to allocate time and things like this. But it's a real problem.
That could be. We had a funeral director, a manager of Myrtle Beach Funeral Home recently, and it made me think that is a 24/7 position. A minister is a 24/7 position. I mean, and even more. It's probably a 36/8 position. I mean, it's you're never off duty.
That's right. You go to the grocery store, like the doctor, goes to the grocery store. Hey, doc, I got a pain in my elbow here. The minister goes to the grocery store. Tell me what Bible verse and so. But you can't do anything that would reflect negatively on the pastorate.
Oh yeah, sure.
Wherever you are.
So
we were in a tour over to Bethlehem one time several years ago, and to the Holy Land. And we were sitting in a big ballroom for a big banquet kind of thing, where they were feeding all these tour groups. Just thousands of people in there. Somebody came over to me and said, "Aren't you Kirk Lawton from Myrtle Beach?" My wife said, "You can't go anywhere that somebody doesn't know you." So you have to be on guard. You can't let you have to be who you are.
Wherever you are, even in the Holy Land. I love it. Kirk, I'm sorry we've run out of time. Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
It's been my honor to be with you, Greg.
Not at all. Our honor for sure. Stay tuned to a little more All-American People with Pastor Kirk Lawton coming up next. If you've been sitting here the last 25 minutes, you know why you need to take the time, whether it's this Sunday, next Sunday, Easter Sunday, whatever Sunday it is, take the time to come on down and visit the services here at Ocean Lakes Family Campground, 9 o'clock. Even if you want to take a little play hooky and leave and not go to your home church on a Sunday, the great thing is you can come here at 9 and still go to the traditional service at your church at 11 o'clock. Take the time to visit Ocean Lakes Family Campground. Come down and see Pastor Kirk, Chaplain Kirk, the entire extended family here, all the teammates at Ocean Lakes Family Campground who make every Sunday, or even a handful of Sundays because there are no membership rolls, this, their home church. 9 o'clock, come in at 8:45 for the vocals and the service at 9, and then spend an enjoyable day taking in the sun. Chaplain Kirk Lawton, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Very special.